Australia is in many ways an odd place, home to strange wildlife, as well as being situated geographically far away from what anyone might consider the West, yet being an incredibly Western nation culturally, with much in common with both the United States and the United Kingdom. A country such as this virtually demands that we bring you the 10 things you didn't know about Australia. Australia has some of the most unique wildlife in the world, but the reasons for this are as interesting as the fact of their presence. Approximately 99 million years ago, what is now known as Australia completely separated from the then supercontinent Gondwana, where it was to remain geographically isolated from the rest of the world since that time. As a consequence of this, many types of animal life took highly divergent paths of evolution when compared to fauna found on other continents due to their isolation. Most people know of marsupials, which are pouch mammals, but few know of monotremes. Monotremes are egg-laying mammals that are only found in Papua New Guinea and Australia uniquely has two of them, the porcupine resembling echidna and the bizarre-looking platypus. Monotremes are sometimes seen as a cross between reptiles and mammals because of their physiology. For example, they lay eggs and have a lower body temperature than both marsupials and placental mammals, but also have fur and lactate, which justifiably earns them the classification as mammals. Most uniquely of all, the male platypus is one of the only mammals to produce a venom which can be injected from its hind spurs and is deadly to its prey. Few other mammals in the world have this feature, which is why, coupled with their other strange characteristics, monotremes are one of the great wonders of Australia.
If you travel by boat without a visa, you will not make Australia home. It is the policy and practice of the Australian government to intercept any vessel that is seeking to illegally enter Australia. The rules apply to everyone: families, children, unaccompanied children, educated and skilled. There are no exceptions.
Australia is a developed country with one of the toughest immigration policies in the world. Unlike Europe and the United States, where people just seem to enter and leave as they please, Australia has a strict vetting process and fiercely guards its waters to prevent unwanted immigrants from entering. Since illegals have to come by sea, they are sometimes referred to as boat people, which is why most of the prevention takes place on the high seas. Because of this, Australia has come under the fire of criticism by both other countries and internally. However, supporters of strict immigration policy stress the fact that it is allowed for the maintenance of a healthy economic and cultural integration compared to other countries. Whichever side of the debate you might stand on, the Australian government has been firm on this issue, with the motto being,
if you come to Australia illegally by boat, there is no way you will ever make Australia home.
After Australian soldiers had returned home from World War I, many decided to take up farming for a living. Unfortunately, after a time, the Great Depression hit, which made making a living by farming very difficult, somewhat further compounded by the fact that large flocks of emus, which are the second largest flightless birds in the world after the ostrich, numbering in the tens of thousands, took to foraging in the newly established farming locations, and this proved ruinous to the livestock and crops. This led to the Great Emu War, where large contingents of military personnel were given machine guns with the idea of mowing down the emus en masse. However, this proved difficult as the emus continually evaded attempts at herding them together and the machine guns lacked range. And so after two major attempts, efforts were given up and the emus continued their destruction. After declaring war on the emus, at the end of the day, it was the Australians, not the troublesome birds, who had lost the Great Emu War. Australia has some of the worst internet of any developed country, unfortunately, and took rank 44 in internet speed behind virtually every other Western country, and far behind places such as South Korea and Japan. Part of the reason for this is that Australia has largely failed to upgrade to the new common fiber connections used throughout the developed world. This seems like a minor inconvenience, but the truth is, it slows down both business and pleasure, with downloads and uploads moving at an agonizing crawl, while other countries get the same amount done in a fraction of the time Australia requires. There's been much talk of national upgrades, but when that will happen, well, only time will tell. So next time you're in Oz and want to download a game from Steam, just leave your computer on for a few days. It might get done sometime later in the week. Not many people think of steak when they think of Australia, but Australia has some of the best beef in the world. In 2015, Australia won the Best Steak in the World challenge, but that is just the tip of the iceberg because Australia has a huge variety of meats to choose from. Beef, lamb, chicken are the conventional ones, but kangaroo, emu, crocodile, and others are readily available as well. The great variety, coupled by the great accessibility, makes Australia one of the #1 stops for meat lovers in the world, where it is both cheap and accessible. Australia might be a westernized country, but in many ways, that is where the similarities end, because unlike the West, Australia is home to some of the most dangerous and venomous animals in existence. The inland taipan is considered to be the most venomous snake in the world, and if left unattended, bites will cause a swift death, coupled by the death adder, which has the fastest strike of any venomous snake in the world. Add to that list brown snakes and tiger snakes, and you get a virtual cornucopia of venomous serpentine delight. But the fun doesn't stop there, because Australia is also home to deadly spiders as well, such as the funnel web spider and redback widow, with the latter resembling a black widow in many ways. But maybe these critters aren't enough. Well, the saltwater crocodile might not be venomous, but it is the largest crocodile in the world and is highly aggressive, found throughout parts of Queensland and the Northern Territory. And if you want even more danger, the coasts of Australia are home to some of the largest populations of great white sharks in the world, along with the deadliest jellyfish around, the box jellyfish, whose stinging tentacles have caused many to drown because of the agonizing pain the venom delivers. Australia can be a fun place to visit, but potentially a dangerous one as well. Some Australians might hear the term stolen generation and recognize it, but most outside will not, and it is one of those dirty little secrets of Australia's past that people tend to ignore. The stolen generations refers to people of mixed Aboriginal and European descent that were forcibly removed from their Aboriginal families in the belief that they would be better raised as mixed people within mainstream Australian culture and society. This policy ran from 1905 to 1969, and since its abolition has stirred great controversy within Australia. Activists for Aboriginal rights cite not only government complicity, but direct government approval in the abductions and removals that took place under this policy. Although seemingly motivated by good intentions, such as the best interests of the children involved, the questions raised by the politics of the stolen generation will likely haunt the citizens of Australia for years to come, whatever their descent, and will cast a long shadow on this otherwise positive and upbeat nation. Australia is one of the economic powerhouses of the world, with its huge reserves of natural resources, particularly minerals such as gold, lead, iron, zinc, manganese, and many more. But having such natural wealth, among other things, can often be a pitfall. Australia is one of China's biggest trading partners, and that trade relationship overall has been a net positive for Australia, considering the general trajectory of economic growth and progress in China. But it also creates a dangerous dependency. Such trade partnerships are great during booms, but terrible during busts, and it is very likely that something will soon go awry in the Chinese economy, which will have massive consequences for Australia. An invasive species is a species that is transplanted from its home geographical location to a new one where it is not native. This can have, and often does have, devastating ecological consequences for the native animals, who often cannot adapt to the presence of the new species. Australia might have been the pioneer of invasive species when it introduced the dreaded cane toad. Native to Central and South America, as well as the Caribbean, the cane toad has become Australia's public enemy #1 when it comes to invasive species. Having been introduced in 1935 by the Bureau of Sugar Experiment Stations in order to attempt to control the growing problem of cane beetles destroying sugarcane crops, the plan backfired massively and is one of the great examples of human bungling. The cane toads quickly spread far beyond what had been intended and are today considered to be one of the greatest threats present to Australia's fragile ecosystem. They have bred like wildfire and are now so common that a frequent teenage quote-unquote sporting event, if you want to call it that, is cane toad clubbing, where you swat cane toads like golf balls. Unfortunately, there probably is no solution to the cane toad menace, and it's something that Australians will just have to live with. Australia has some of the best quality of life in the world, with both Sydney and Melbourne being ranked among the top 20 cities for the year 2016, a ranking which has been consistent for years, and it's easy to see why. The quality of life comes from the warm to moderate temperatures, a strong economy, an abundance of resources, and as some might argue, a strict immigration policy. Whatever the ultimate reasons might be, Australia seems to be one of the best places to live in the world. That is, if you don't mind crappy internet. For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out our other lists. And we'll see you all next time.